What if I told you there is a single molecule in your body that influences how efficiently your heart pumps, how sharp your memory remains, how quickly you heal, and even how long you live? That molecule is nitric oxide, often referred to as the anti-aging molecule your doctor never mentioned. Its discovery only a few decades ago was so transformative that it earned the 1998 Nobel Prize in Medicine. Nitric oxide acts simultaneously as a messenger, a regulator, and a defender within the body. Yet, despite its importance, production of this molecule declines steadily with age, a decline that may explain why we develop stiff arteries, cognitive decline, and weakened immunity over time. Today, we will examine what nitric oxide is, how it functions, why it is essential to health and longevity, and most importantly, how you can support its production naturally. Hi, my name is Bradley. I have been practicing Chinese medicine, herbology, and functional medicine for over 13 years. I've treated over 10,000 patients and have been biohacking my own health for longevity for more than 20 years. At its core, nitric oxide is a gas molecule produced by the body. Interestingly, it is technically classified as a free radical. While free radicals are typically associated with cellular damage and aging, nitric oxide is unique. It is a beneficial free radical functioning as a signaling molecule. It instructs blood vessels to relax, neurons to communicate, and immune cells to respond. It is short-lived, electrically neutral, and small enough to diffuse rapidly into target tissues, allowing it to exert its effects without contributing to oxidative damage under normal conditions. The challenge, however, is that nitric oxide cannot be stored. It is made on demand, and our ability to produce it diminishes with age. By the time most individuals reach their 40s or 50s, natural production may already be reduced by 40 to 50%, and this decline only accelerates with further aging. Stay tuned as we delve into what nitric oxide does, how it works, how to increase levels, and finally some cautions when increasing its levels in the body. So why is nitric oxide so essential? Its influence can be summarized in three primary domains: vascular health, nervous system function, and immune defense. First, vascular health. Nitric oxide is the body's primary vasodilator. It acts directly on endothelial tissue, the inner lining of blood vessels, causing them to relax and widen. This improves circulation, lowers blood pressure, and maintains vascular flexibility. Flexible vessels protect against clot formation by reducing platelet aggregation, which is the clumping of platelets within blood vessels, and also reduces the likelihood of stroke and cardiovascular events. A helpful analogy is to picture your blood vessels as a river. When the river is wide, clear, and free-flowing, debris has difficulty sticking to the banks. But when the river narrows and flow is restricted, buildup becomes inevitable. Nitric oxide ensures that your river system remains open, flexible, and resilient. Beyond vasodilation, nitric oxide also exerts anti-inflammatory effects within vascular tissue, making it central to the smooth, efficient function of the heart and arteries. Second, nervous system function. In the brain, nitric oxide enhances synaptic transmission and increases cerebral blood flow, both of which support cognitive performance. It also stimulates neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons, which underpins memory, learning, and neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and adapt over time. In short, nitric oxide plays a fundamental role in maintaining mental sharpness and adaptability throughout life. And third, immune defense. Lastly, nitric oxide is also a weapon of the immune system. In response to infection or tissue injury, immune cells release large amounts of nitric oxide to drive an inflammatory defense response. In this specific context, nitric oxide becomes intentionally oxidative, using its properties as a free radical to damage invading microbes, support wound repair, and stimulate recovery. This is one of the few scenarios where nitric oxide's normally protective chemistry is harnessed to be destructive for the benefit of the host. Looking at these functions of nitric oxide, it becomes obvious that when nitric oxide levels fall, each of these systems become compromised. Blood vessels stiffen, circulation weakens, memory and cognitive performance decline, immune defenses falter, and healing slows. This is why nitric oxide is widely regarded as a central molecule in the biology of aging. Now that we know how important nitric oxide is, let's discover how the body makes it. The body relies on two primary pathways to generate nitric oxide: an enzymatic pathway and an oral dietary pathway. Let's begin with the enzymatic pathway, which is the main source of nitric oxide in younger, healthy adults. This pathway is driven by a family of enzymes known as nitric oxide synthases, NOS. These enzymes convert the amino acid L-arginine into nitric oxide. There are three main forms of NOS, each with distinct roles. First, there is ENOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase. This form operates in vascular tissue, specifically endothelial tissue, the cells that line blood vessels, and serves as a guardian of vascular health. Under normal conditions, ENOS produces nitric oxide in vascular tissue, which, as previously discussed, keeps blood vessels dilated and flexible, prevents clot formation, calms inflammation, and protects the delicate endothelium, all of which add up to long-term cardiovascular resilience. However, under conditions of prolonged oxidative stress caused by things such as smoking, diabetes, high cholesterol, or chronic inflammatory states, ENOS can become uncoupled. Uncoupling means that instead of generating protective nitric oxide, ENOS begins to produce superoxide, a reactive oxygen species, otherwise known as a free radical. Superoxide is essentially an oxygen molecule with an extra electron, making it unstable and highly damaging to biological tissues. This shift in ENOS activity drives inflammation, arterial stiffening, and the progression towards heart attack and stroke. The reason for this uncoupling lies in a critical cofactor required by ENOS, tetrahydrobiopterin, BH4. Without BH4, ENOS cannot produce nitric oxide. In oxidative situations like the ones we discussed, wherein oxidative stress is high, BH4 becomes oxidized into BH2. If ENOS uses BH2 in place of BH4 as a cofactor, it produces superoxide instead of nitric oxide. The body attempts to neutralize superoxide with its inherent antioxidant defense system using superoxide dismutase, SOD, a powerful antioxidant. However, superoxide is converted into other free radicals such as peroxynitrite at a rate faster than the ability of SOD to neutralize it. This explains why lifestyle choices are so consequential. Reducing exposure to free radicals and consuming a diet rich in antioxidants helps preserve BH4 and maintain ENOS in its protective role. The encouraging reality is that nutrition and lifestyle interventions can recouple ENOS, restoring its ability to generate nitric oxide properly. Lowering oxidative stress in the body by adopting healthy lifestyle choices reduces the amount of BH4 converting into BH2. This is an important first step. Additionally, the nutrient folate facilitates the conversion of BH2 back into BH4. Eating foods high in folate is recommended for this reason. The list of foods containing folate is long. However, one major group of foods that contains folate and helps with nitric oxide production are dark leafy greens. We will discuss this more shortly. The next form of nitric oxide synthase is NNOS, neuronal nitric oxide synthase, which functions primarily in the brain and the nervous system. Neuronal-based nitric oxide fine-tunes how neurons communicate through a process called S-nitrosylation, which modifies N-methyl-diasparate, NMDA receptors located on neurons. NMDA receptors control the levels of glutamate in neurons. Glutamate is used as an excitatory neurotransmitter, and higher levels are associated with improved synaptic signaling, the foundation of learning and memory. It's important to note that excessively elevated neuronal glutamate levels are neurotoxic, so balance is key. In simpler terms, when neuronal nitric oxide levels are optimal, this helps neurons talk to each other more clearly and quickly, boosting memory, focus, and overall cognitive performance. Also, by relaxing blood vessels in the brain, NNOS-produced nitric oxide improves cerebral blood flow, ensuring neurons receive the oxygen and nutrients needed for optimal function. In addition, it provides anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective effects and helps preserve neurons, supports myelination, and even contributes to brain regeneration, all of which enhance higher-order processes like information processing and problem solving. However, dysregulation of NNOS can occur, typically involving an overproduction of nitric oxide beyond what neuronal tissues require. While distinct from ENOS uncoupling, the underlying drivers appear similar: chronic inflammation and long-standing metabolic or lifestyle-related disease. When left unchecked, this dysregulation has been linked to neurological conditions including depression and neurodegenerative disorders, where excessive nitric oxide, excessive intraneuronal glutamate levels, and subsequent oxidative stress contribute to progressive brain injury. Again, this highlights the importance of lifestyle habits that support low inflammation and prevent chronic disease states. The last enzymatic form of nitric oxide synthase is INOS, inducible nitric oxide synthase. This form of NOS operates within the immune system. In response to infection or injury, INOS produces large bursts of nitric oxide as part of the inflammatory defense response. The INOS pathway helps eliminate bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. INOS is found in many different tissues in the body, but was originally found in high concentration in macrophages, the immune cells that hunt down pathogens in tumor cells. INOS is also vital for wound healing, driving the inflammatory response necessary for tissue repair, with deficiencies in INOS leading to slower recovery. Beyond defense and repair, INOS-derived nitric oxide regulates the immune system itself, shaping how immune cells behave. It guides T helper cell differentiation, adjusts macrophage activity, and influences the release of signaling molecules such as interleukins 1, 2, 4, 8, and 12, keeping the immune system balanced and effective. However, as with other forms, balance is critical. Excessive or uncontrolled INOS activity can fuel harmful inflammation, especially in chronic disease states, and in severe cases contribute to conditions such as septic shock. It is important to note that INOS does not appear to be the cause of these issues. It seems to be a downstream effect caused by chronic inflammatory or immune conditions. As you can see, the three different enzymatic pathways of nitric oxide production have very targeted individual effects that deliver impactful benefits to their target tissues. The body possesses these different pathways to control where nitric oxide is being produced, in what levels, and at what times. Together, they illustrate the remarkable versatility of nitric oxide, supporting cardiovascular, neurological, and immune function, while also highlighting the delicate balance each requires to maintain health. The second major pathway for nitric oxide production comes from the diet and is both fascinating and elegant. This process is known as the enterosalivary circulation of nitrate. When you consume nitrate-rich foods such as beets, spinach, arugula, and other leafy greens, dietary nitrates are absorbed in the small intestine and enter the bloodstream. About 25% of this circulating nitrate is selectively transported back into the salivary glands by a specialized protein called sealin. Once concentrated in saliva, these nitrates encounter anaerobic bacteria that reside in the deep crevices on the posterior surface of the tongue. These bacteria play a critical role. They reduce nitrate into nitrite, producing saliva that is now enriched with nitrite. When this nitrite-rich saliva is swallowed, it enters the acidic environment of the stomach. Here, the combination of nitrite and gastric acid drives the formation of nitric oxide, along with other beneficial nitrogen compounds. This newly generated nitric oxide is absorbed in the bloodstream, while any remaining nitrite that survives the stomach's digestive process continues to be absorbed in the small intestine, further contributing to systemic nitric oxide availability. Interestingly, this process mirrors an ancient Taoist practice. Taoist meditators intentionally generated and swallowed saliva as part of their internal alchemy rituals. They believed this practice warmed the stomach, enhanced energy, and cultivated qi, and they referred to this saliva as the golden elixir, a substance thought to nourish the body and promote longevity. Modern science now provides a mechanism for this ancient insight. Swallowing saliva enriched with nitrates generates nitric oxide in the stomach, supporting circulation, metabolism, and overall vitality. Several factors influence the efficiency of this pathway. One of the most important is oral health and microbiome balance. The bacterial population on the tongue plays a crucial role, as these microbes are responsible for reducing dietary nitrate into nitrite. Disruptions such as frequent use of antiseptic mouthwash, smoking, excessive saturated fat consumption, or periodontal disease can alter the oral microbiome and destroy these nitrate-reducing bacteria, ultimately suppressing nitric oxide production. Consuming nitrate-rich foods provides oral bacteria with the substrate they need for the conversion to nitrite, ensuring this pathway functions effectively. Also, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, enhances the conversion of nitrite into nitric oxide and stomach acid and prevents the formation of harmful nitrogen-based byproducts, nitrosamines, which are carcinogenic. Another important note on this topic: processed meats are typically high in nitrates, but their consumption is discouraged. And this is because they are associated with stomach and colorectal cancers. Vegetables avoid this issue due to their antioxidant nature, which, similar to vitamin C, prevents the formation of nitrosamines as nitrites convert to nitric oxide in the stomach. Taken together, the oral dietary pathway highlights how nutrition, oral health, and digestive function are intimately connected in determining nitric oxide bioavailability. Unlike the enzymatic pathway, which relies on L-arginine and nitric oxide synthase, this pathway offers an independent backup system, one that becomes increasingly important as enzymatic nitric oxide production declines with age. Although nitric oxide production falls with age, the encouraging news is that nitric oxide levels can be supported and enhanced through lifestyle, diet, and specific practices. One of the most effective ways to boost nitric oxide naturally is through a diet rich in nitrate-containing foods. Dark leafy greens such as arugula, spinach, bok choy, kale, and mustard greens are especially powerful, along with beets, citrus fruits, watermelon, pomegranate, celery, fennel, garlic, and even dark chocolate. To maximize their benefits, it's important to remember that nitrates are delicate molecules. Light sautéing or gentle steaming will preserve them, but boiling or cooking at very high temperatures can destroy much of their nitrate content. The gentler the cooking method, the more nitric oxide supporting power these foods will provide. Beyond diet, supplements can also help boost nitric oxide production. Two of the most studied supplements for boosting nitric oxide are L-arginine and L-citrulline. L-arginine is an amino acid that serves as the direct substrate for nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that produces nitric oxide. The challenge, however, is absorption. Only about 60% of L-arginine survives passage through the small intestine, and of that, as much as 70% is broken down during first-pass metabolism in the liver. In the end, less than 20% of what you ingest is actually available for nitric oxide production. The recommended dosage for L-arginine is 1.5 to 3 grams daily, with a maximum of 6 to 8 grams. At higher doses, side effects such as nausea, diarrhea, bloating, headache, gout, or even airway irritation can occur. L-citrulline offers a more efficient alternative to L-arginine. Unlike L-arginine, it is absorbed very well in the small intestine and bypasses first-pass liver metabolism, entering circulation intact. From there, the kidneys convert it into L-arginine, which then fuels nitric oxide production. This makes L-citrulline a more reliable and sustained source of nitric oxide precursor. The limitation, however, is that the kidneys can only convert so much at once, meaning that taking larger doses will not endlessly raise nitric oxide levels. The recommended dosage for L-citrulline is typically 3 to 6 grams per day, with possible side effects at higher doses being primarily gastrointestinal, similar to L-arginine. I recommend on both supplements not exceeding 1.5 to 3 grams to avoid the side effects that can occur at these higher dosages. Additionally, lifestyle approaches play a crucial role. Exercise is one of the most powerful natural boosters of nitric oxide. As blood flow increases due to exercise, the friction or shear stress of blood against the vessel walls directly stimulates ENOS, the enzyme that produces nitric oxide. Exercise also raises growth factors such as IGF-1 and VEGF, which also stimulate ENOS, further enhancing nitric oxide production. Strength training tends to increase nitric oxide locally in skeletal muscle tissue, while aerobic training and high-intensity interval training, HIIT training, improves nitric oxide levels systemically, providing a larger benefit for reducing arterial stiffness and lowering blood pressure. Oral health is another key factor. Nitrate-reducing bacteria on the tongue are essential for nitric oxide production through the oral dietary pathway. To preserve them, it's best to avoid alcohol-based mouthwashes, limit smoking and excessive alcohol use, honestly just don't smoke, and also maintain healthy gums through good dental care. Finally, even breathing practices can make a difference. Though it may sound unusual, humming has been shown to significantly increase nitric oxide production. Humming at around 130 hertz can raise nitric oxide levels in the sinuses up to 15 times higher than normal exhalation. The current suggestion for practice is to hum while breathing for 60 to 120 repetitions once per day. This not only boosts nitric oxide levels, but also improves airflow through the sinuses, allowing nitric oxide to move from the nasal passages into general circulation. Nose breathing is equally important. Mouth breathing bypasses this process, while nasal breathing ensures the body benefits from this natural nitric oxide boost. While boosting nitric oxide production can be highly beneficial, more is not always better. In healthy younger individuals, it is difficult to elevate nitric oxide to harmful levels because the body naturally regulates its production. Enzyme function is efficient, antioxidant defenses are strong, and oxidative stress is relatively low, all of which prevent excess nitric oxide from becoming damaging. For this reason, supplementation is usually unnecessary in youth. However, nitric oxide levels decline significantly with age due to reduced enzyme activity, diminished cofactors, and higher oxidative stress. In older adults, this drop contributes to vascular stiffness, reduced circulation, and impaired cellular repair. Targeted supplementation can therefore be protective and restorative, except in chronic inflammatory or autoimmune conditions where excessively or misregulated nitric oxide production may worsen disease progression. In chronic inflammatory states, autoimmune disorders, or conditions of elevated oxidative stress, nitric oxide's normally protective role can shift towards harm. ENOS may become uncoupled, generating free radicals instead of nitric oxide, and INOS can drive excessive nitric oxide production. In both cases, whether due to overproduction or the presence of superoxide, nitric oxide readily reacts with reactive oxygen species to form peroxynitrite, a highly reactive oxidant capable of damaging proteins, lipids, and DNA. This amplifies oxidative stress, perpetuates immune overreaction and inflammatory signaling, contributing to tissue injury, vascular dysfunction, and progression of chronic and autoimmune disease. The key takeaway is this: nitric oxide supplementation or stimulation should be approached thoughtfully and under medical guidance if chronic inflammation or chronic disease is present. Nitric oxide is a small molecule with extraordinary influence. It relaxes blood vessels, sharpens the mind, powers the immune system, and supports the very foundation of longevity. Yet, its production steadily declines with age, unless we take deliberate steps to preserve it. Through diet, exercise, oral health, and mindful living, you can sustain nitric oxide levels and protect these vital functions. Recent research underscores nitric oxide's pivotal role in aging. A 2023 study highlighted that nitric oxide supplementation could delay age-related cellular changes and extend lifespan in animal models. Additionally, nitric oxide has been linked to delayed endothelial cellular aging. Researchers have also found that centenarians, those living to 100 years of age, typically have well-preserved nitric oxide function. These findings suggest that maintaining optimal nitric oxide levels may not only support health span, but also contribute to lifespan extension. So, when you think of healthy aging, think of nitric oxide, the invisible messenger flowing with every heartbeat, every breath, every thought. By nurturing this molecule, you're not just supporting your health today, you're investing in a longer, stronger, more vibrant life. And after all, that's why we're here, at least on this channel.